Greetings of the day, children. A warm welcome to all of you for the virtual session of science. So let us see what are we going to have in this virtual session of science. We are going to continue with the chapter Light, Shadows and Reflections Part 3. What are we learning in this session today? Let us have a look. I hope you will have taken down all the important points discussed in the previous session, and all the concepts should be very clear with you all for this chapter. So please take down points. Do revisit all the notes to actually have the connectivity of the virtual sessions of the chapter, so that you stay connected. Whatever you have done in the previous session will be connected to what we are going to do today. So let us see. We have discussed about the shadow. We have seen one of the very important phenomena due to light which travels in a straight line casts shadow by an opaque object, that you have learned in the previous session. So I hope you will have taken down all those points. That's why I always reinforce that you have to write in your notebook, so that you stay connected with the previous session, what was done previously. So let us see. Shadows. An opaque object block the light falling on it. This creates an area of darkness on the side of the object away from the source of light. So you always remember, always opaque object will cast a shadow, because it is able to block the light falling on it. Very simple logic. So that creates an area of the darkness on the side of the object away from the source of light. So the part of the object which is away from the light, from the source of light, will cast a shadow. A translucent object also creates a faint area of darkness. So you all know what is translucent object. It will partially allow the light rays to pass through it, not completely, as you all know. You have learned about opaque material, you have learned about translucent material, you have learned about transparent material. So translucent material allows only certain amount of light rays to pass through it, and some light rays will not be able to pass through it. So you can partially see through that material. That's why translucent object also create a faint area of darkness. An area of darkness formed by an opaque object obstructing light is called a shadow. So what is a shadow? Is actually an area of darkness which is actually formed by the opaque object which is obstructing the light. That is shadow. You should understand the definition of shadow, children. And the following three things are required for shadow to form, very importantly. We will see the figure 13.4 after this. What are the three requirements for the shadow to form? A source of light. Obviously, a source of light to cast a shadow. You must have tried yourself on the walls. You tried different formation of shadow. You try with the help of your fingers, and you create so many types of creatures or so many types of objects. Shadow formation, that is another way of showing the shadow is being cast on the wall. And even you can try this, and you must have tried that, children. So a source of light is used definitely. An opaque object is used over here. So with your fingers you try different shadows on the wall, and a screen or surface behind the object. These are the three important requirements for a shadow to form. Definitely when you are trying to cast shadow on the wall, that wall act as a screen or a surface behind the object. So you can try out different formation of the shadow on the wall with the help of a light source, and your fingers will act as an opaque object, and you can create different creatures and different types of objects on the wall. I hope this is very clear. So here you can see formation of shadow, a light source behind, a child coming as an obstruction in the path of the light. So when an object comes in the path of the light, what happens? That object will cast a shadow and it will fall ahead. You can see over here formation of shadow, very simple. So the requirement over here on the shadow is falling on the ground. Here the ground is serving the purpose of a screen. So the screen over here is the ground, the child is the object, and a light source behind the child. So three important requirements fulfilled over here. That's why a shadow of the child is casted on the ground. I hope that three requirements for shadow formation is clear with you all children. So a shadow will not form if any of this is absent. This explains why we cannot see a shadow in the dark. It is only when light rays are obstructed by an opaque object that we get a shadow of the object. Very important points. A shadow will not be casted if any of the three is missing. This is very well explained that if there is absence of light source, in darkness you cannot see shadows. And it has to be obstructed by an opaque object. And that particular opaque object which obstruct the light source will cast the shadow. So an opaque object will not allow the light rays to pass through it. That's why the other part of the body or the object will cast a shadow on the screen. I hope you are taking on all these points which are extremely important, children. What are the characteristics of a shadow? What are the properties of the shadow? These are also very important points here. A shadow has the following three characteristics. It is always black regardless of the color of the object used to make the shadow. So you wear colorful clothes, you are going for a party at night and your shadow casted is always black. Whatever colorful dress you are wearing, that won't be shown in the shadow. I hope everyone will agree to this. So next point, it only shows the shape or outline of the object and not the detail. So your detail of the body, whether you are very thin, very slim or very fat or you are very tall, all that features are not going to be covered. It only shows the shape or outline of the object. All the details, the shape of your nose and your ears and all that, facial structure, all that will not be shown by the shadow. It will not cover up all the details. And the size of the shadow varies depending on the distance between the object and the source of the light. So the shadow size always depend upon the distance between the object and the source of the light. It will not depend upon your height, your weight and all that. Because you have seen in point 2, it shows only the shape or outline of the object and not the details. And the shadow is completely dark. So the size of the shadow does not depend upon, it will not depend upon what you are wearing, what colorful dress you are wearing, what is your height, weight and all that. So it depends upon the distance between the object and the source of light and the distance between the object and the screen. These are two important factors, very importantly plays very important role in making the size of the shadow. So the distance between the object and the source of the light and the distance between the object and the screen. This is very important to understand the size of the shadow. So reflection, what is reflection? We are learning about light, reflection, shadows and all. So the concept of shadow has to be covered in detail. Let us see what is reflection. When light is incident on a surface, it gets reflected or bounces back. As you throw a ball on the wall, a cricket ball, you throw on a surface, on a hard surface, it will bounce back. On a wall, on a ground, if you throw, it will strike the surface and it will bounce. So similarly, the light which is incident, which is falling on a surface, incident means falling or striking on the surface, it bounces back. Any surface that is really well polished or shiny acts like a mirror. The phenomenon of light bouncing off surfaces is called reflection. So the definition of reflection is the bouncing back of the light rays from a surface, that is reflection of light. So please take down the very important definition of reflection. So this is how reflection happens. Please draw this diagram in your notebook. A single light ray, if you consider, and you take a mirror. You're keeping the mirror, and you will see you're keeping a mirror on a surface. One single light ray will be incident at a point on a mirror. Incident means striking the mirror at a point. What will happen to the light ray? The light ray which is falling on the surface of the mirror will get reflected. You can see the incident ray red in color and the reflected ray green in color. So it will get reflected. This is how reflection happens of the light ray. So an incident ray of light falling on a mirror get reflected, and see the direction of reflection. Please take down this diagram. Draw this diagram in your notebook. So if you draw a dotted perpendicular line between the incident ray and the reflected ray, you will get two types of angles formed. Here I will show the angle of incident, that means the angle which is forming with the straight dotted imaginary line, that is angle I, and the angle R, that is angle of reflection, which will be formed by the reflected ray with the normal. So both incident ray and the reflected ray will form angle. Incident ray will form angle I, that is angle of incidence with the normal, and reflected ray will form angle R, that is angle of reflection with the normal. And normal is a straight line. We just draw imaginary line to show the separation of the incident ray and the reflected ray. This is diagram is very important. Please draw. This actually explains reflection of light. I hope the diagram is very clear and the concepts are clear with your children. So here we come to an end of the session, children. Thank you, children, and have a great day.